Weekly Shonen Jump is presently undergoing an absolutely historical shakeup. My Hero Academia's final chapter has barely been out a month, yet Jujutsu Kaisen just announced its own impending conclusion at the end of September. Suddenly, two of the magazine's central pillars are disappearing at the same time. What's more, at a time when One Piece has finally entered its final saga, which leaves them like a decade at most to replace that.
Find out if Luffy will ever find One Piece.
I've seen a lot of people compare this to the end of the Big Three era, but frankly, it may be worse, and not just because One Piece is way closer to being almost done than when Oda said it was almost done a decade ago. Naruto and Bleach ended almost 2 years apart, not barely 2 months, and also, the Big Three was never really a thing the way we think of it in North America. If Luffy were to rap "It's just Big Me," he would in fact be spittin'. That said, losing two top 25 manga this close together still isn't quite comparable to the hypothetical end of One Piece, but it is pretty dang dire, and it's clear that Jump needs a hit anime based on a manga they actually still have running pronto. Luckily, they do have some very promising prospects in the pipeline, which I'm all caught up on reading, so today I'd like to evaluate those future anime's chances of inheriting Hero Aca and JJK's crowns. That is, after this word from our sponsor, World of Warships, the free-to-play naval combat sim that's currently collaborating with Blue Archive to put their industry-leading waifus on your warship crew. Shiroko, Serika, Ayane, Nonomi, and Hoshino are all joining the game as commanders, with the last three also getting their own custom ship skins that are damn near as pretty as the girls themselves. Plus, custom flags, though real players of culture will probably want to fly the Master Shiba flag instead. There's always something new and exciting happening in World of Warships, with each week bringing fresh missions, events, and updates for you and all your best Battle of Midway reenactment buddies to enjoy, which would be a very expensive hobby in real life, but thankfully the World of Warships team gives their all to slavishly recreating each of the hundreds of historically accurate ships in the game and making sure they appeal to a wide variety of playstyles. But anyway, you want to play, you can download the game today at the link below, and if you're new to the Wargaming portal, pick one of these invite codes representing your favorite Blue Archive commander to get 7 days of premium account access, 2.5 million credits, 1,000 doubloons, and 3 Blue Archive loot boxes absolutely free. All you gotta do is click, pick, and play. In order to get a complete picture of Shonen Jump's future, we need to look at series from both the magazine proper and its webcomic portal offshoot, Shonen Jump Plus, since both platforms have proven to be serious hitmakers in recent years. Spy Family is one of the biggest anime franchises out right now. Summertime Render and Jigokuraku were both huge fan favorites, and Ruri Dragon still got as much hype around it as ever, even after making the jump from the magazine. On that note, though, what we won't be looking at are any non-action adventure series, since I already gushed plenty about Ruri Dragon, Blue Box, Showa Shoten, and Akane Banashi in my video on the other side of shonen. I do think those first two have the potential to be hits on par with Spy Family, though. Blue Box, especially with how it can make your heart race like Horimiya 1 minute and Haikyuu the next. And Akane Banashi is definitely going to be one of them Chihaya Furu type shows that all of your friends with good taste keep telling you to watch, and you ignore them. Showa Shoten could go either way. Anyway, before we look at upcoming Jump anime, it would probably be smart to start with a quick look at all the exciting new ones that we've seen come out over the last year. Kaiju number 8 was widely embraced the world over just last season, especially by slightly older shonen fans who can relate to Kafka's angst about where his life's going 30 years in. In terms of plot and formula, it doesn't really rock any boats. It's basically My Attack on Titan Academia, but we 30-year-olds need our generic power fantasies too, and goddamn, does it ever make that sick concept look cool. I don't think it quite has the appeal to replace JJK or Hero Aca, but I do see it maybe reaching a similar level to Black Clover or Dr. Stone. Speaking of educational anime, Elusive Samurai's generating a fair bit of buzz this season with its emotional roller coaster of a story and absolutely stunning animation, but I do think that ultimately its historical theme is holding it back from having the mainstream reach of Jump's more fantastical action titles. Though at least it does have the benefit of being on Crunchyroll and actually getting a marketing budget. Undead Unluck is unfortunately underperforming stateside due to a combination of Disney Plus brand mismanagement and a story that's kind of difficult to evangelize for without spoiling everything. But I do think that as more people watch it and get to the part in the town with the zombies and start saying, "Holy shit, what?" Like every other episode, seriously, every other episode, it may pick up steam by word of mouth. At least, I hope it does. It really deserves to. Word of mouth could also be what saves Mission Yozakura Family from the Disney mines, although, despite the fact that it's a very different show from Spy Family, I do worry that the collective American anime mindshare just isn't big enough for two Shonen Jump things about families of spies with big floofy superpowered dogs. The Yozakura Family anime also just isn't that impressive, especially compared to the manga, although Mashal also had that problem at first before it proved that a bangin' creepy nuts OP can be all it takes to find a bigger audience. Chainsaw Man is still one of the most widely talked about manga on the entire internet, even after Season 2 jumped to Jump Plus, and while the anime was a pretty huge hit in its own right out of the gate, it did only cover the first couple arcs where the insanity and violence are still just revving up. Once anime-onlys see the Reze movie and everything that follows it, that hype train is gonna fly off the rails, though, of course, it remains to be seen if it can go as far as Demon Slayer's Mugen Train. Of Jump's recently animated prospects, though, Chainsaw Man is obviously the biggest, and it's only going to get bigger from here. But it is facing some stiff competition to fill the shoes of these passing giants, and some of the stiffest is going to be coming from Tatsuki Fujimoto's own former assistant just next season, when Science Saru's gorgeous adaptation of Yukinobu Tatsu's avant-garde masterpiece Dandadan hits the air. I recently caught up on the entire manga after the Jump app finally removed it from their 18-plus browser-only section, and I gotta tell you, Dandadan is really something special. The first thing that really hits you when you start reading this manga is the insane level of detail in the artwork, which would be impressive enough in a monthly series, but is almost unfathomable for a weekly one. It's like a designer baby made with all the best parts of Fujimoto and Yusuke Murata's art styles, plus some delightful quirks that are entirely its own. And that surreal approach to realism aids it in bringing to life one of the strangest and most inventive stories ever published in the magazine, or online in this case. A series that blurs the line between action, adventure, gag comedy, slice of life romance, and straight up horror. This cute Gyaru, who just broke up with her douchebag boyfriend, is hiding the embarrassing secret that her grandma is a spirit medium and also ghosts are real. This lonely dweeb, meanwhile, is obsessed with the occult and only wants one single solitary friend who he can talk to about what's really lurking in the shadows of our world. That is, aliens and cryptids, but not ghosts, because ghosts are stupid. He tells her this. They argue about it. He goes to a haunted tunnel to prove her wrong, while she goes to a UFO hotspot. Turns out, they're both right. So begins a love story for the ages. After Momo figures out how to use her newfound psychic powers to kick loose the ancient schlong-gobbling demon that's possessed Okarun's body, that is. While it's not quite as experimental in format as Chainsaw Man, time spent figuring out how to break the rules of manga is time that can't be spent adding insane little details to weekly manga art. Dandadan's storytelling is somehow even more unhinged, with a willingness to try new off-the-wall bits matched only by its willingness to fully commit to them. Not only does this manga go places fast, but it stays there and keeps building on everything that's come before, no matter how wild and out-of-pocket an idea may seem at first glance. By the time they're fighting the Loch Ness Monster, you will be a believer. And by the time their hunt for the balls, not Dragon Balls, just balls, brings them face to face with a kaiju, you won't know what to believe anymore. Also, to be clear, that love story for the ages line was not a joke, even a little bit. This couple's got some of the best chemistry in Jump history, in battle series or rom-coms, and the story is as willing to go places with their feelings for each other as it is with the whole cryptids versus yokai versus aliens concept. And the rest of the cast is equally delightful, though explaining exactly how could spoil all the clever, fun ways they're introduced. So just to sum it up, they're all stupid assholes, and I love them to bits. Editor Trey is also a fan of Dandadan, likening it to if Fooly Cooley and Mob Psycho fell into a blender, and they recommend pairing it with a side of the Pillow's discography, which, yeah, that hits pretty well. Dandadan is a roller coaster ride of a story you've really got to see to believe, and with a bangin' creepy nuts OP to lure them in and Science Saru's inimitable animation style to keep them hooked, I think a lot of people are going to become believers fast when it starts this fall. But Dandadan doesn't have long to hog the spotlight before Jump's next potentially huge battle series hits the air. Sakamoto Days is John Wick reimagined as comedy rather than Greek tragedy. Once Japan's greatest assassin, Taro Sakamoto decided to quit the game one day and settle down after he met the girl of his dreams, taking up ownership of a humble convenience store where they raise their precocious daughter together and live out their days in peace. But, of course, you know how assassins be. Just when you think you're out, they always pull you back in, and after a bounty is placed on Sakamoto's head for mysterious reasons, he's got to step up and use his skills to defend that domestic bliss from killers of all stripes, which involves a lot of fighting in tight spaces and disarming and dismantling dudes with carefully calculated hand-to-hand combat moves, just like that one Keanu Reeves thing that everyone loves. However, unlike that thing, Sakamoto's wife is still very much alive, and he promised her he'd never kill again when they got married, so he needs to get extra creative with all that gun fu to stop those killers from taking his life without taking theirs, proving in the process that he's still got it despite how egregiously he's let himself go. Sakamoto Days expertly blends some of the most blisteringly intense action artwork ever printed in Jump with absolutely gut-busting gag-based humor to deliver great episodic comedy punctuated by jaw-dropping fight scenes week after week. Every new assassin who attacks the store has some fun, memorable gimmick, and the fight choreography makes full use of those gimmicks, and every strange arena that Sakamoto finds himself fighting in to create something truly memorable. As a combat connoisseur, I found myself surprised and delighted by this series chapter after chapter. I'd describe the comedic vibe as falling somewhere between One Punch Man, Spy Family, and Hot Fuzz. Of course, creatively brutal fight choreography can only take an anime as far as the animation is able to carry it, and with Lycoris Recoil already offering a similar style of pacifistic John Wick action in very high quality, Sakamoto is facing an uphill battle to stand out in the Sakuga landscape. But from what we've seen of the teaser trailers so far, it looks like the fight scenes are getting the love they deserve, as is the character animation in general. And with Netflix pushing it as a flagship anime for winter, it has a very good shot at capturing a massive audience right out of the gate. Now, personally, I think Dandadan's the better series of the two, but raw quality doesn't always equate to a big audience, and where Dandadan is weird and hard to explain, Sakamoto's appeal is as straightforwardly marketable as it gets. So marketable, it's not even the only current Jump manga that follows a former assassin's day-to-day life. There's also Kill Blue, about this pro-killer who gets Detective Conan sent back to middle school to finally do the childhood he never had, though frankly, I don't think that one has anywhere near Sakamoto's star appeal. But the fact that it survived alongside Sakamoto for over a year is proof that people are hungry for ex-assassin stories. Whatever comes out on top, though, both shows and Chainsaw Man are likely just competing for second place at this point, because there is another, bigger new Jump manga we've still got to talk about. A manga which doesn't even have an anime announced, because it's not even a year old, yet which has already earned a personal cosign from Naruto creator Masashi Kishimoto, shot up to the front of Jump's table of contents, and been singled out by Shueisha's editors as the magazine's next mega hit. A manga that thousands of people were memeing on like it was a classic anime everyone had heard of the week Chapter 1 dropped, which actually created a lot of confusion, because now whenever you gas it up, people are always asking, oh, are you joking? But no, I am not joking, and neither were the people calling it a classic at launch, even if they didn't realize it at the time. Kagurabachi is a certified banger among certified bangers. The work of a goat in the making that anyone who knows the game can instantly recognize. Deep, interesting world building that trusts the reader to piece things together for themselves. Brilliantly choreographed, once again, John Wick-inspired action that visually conveys how the superpowers work with minimal exposition. Cinematic paneling and mastery of contrast on par with Bleach, yet also actual backgrounds. And it does that thing I love so much, I do it in all of my thumbnails, where part of the guy or whatever he's holding, like pops out of the panel like it's coming at you in a 3D movie, and it does it all the time. It's so fucking cool. There is so much amazing art all over every page of this thing, and the way the fight scenes flow together across those pages is just masterful. But the really crazy thing is the kid who made it, Takeru Hokazono, only started seriously drawing manga at 19 after COVID hit and his college life slowed down. 4 years ago. And he won the Tezuka Award 3 years ago. What the f***? Even assuming a lot of time spent doodling as a kid that's not mentioned on his wiki page yet, that is an Akira Toriyama type career trajectory. Generational genius shit. And it's not just the art that reflects that talent. The story is great too. Our hero, Rokuhira Chihiro, is anything but your typical shonen hero. Even when he was apprenticing under his father Kunishige and learning the blacksmithing techniques behind his World War wizard-winning enchanted katanas, the kid was serious, studious, kind of a worrywart even. The polar opposite of your typical Naruto, which is understandable since his dad did have a bit of that shonen protag brat in him, coupled with a true artist's fixation on his craft that kind of forced his son to do all the chores, cook all the food, and also make sure that he ate all that food on a regular basis, because otherwise he would forget. So Chihiro didn't really have much of a chance to be a kid. And that was before the secret wizard Yakuza murdered his dad to steal his magic swords. In the few years since then, he's honed his body and mind into a full-blown killing machine, which he'll use to take down the syndicate that killed his dad and take back the 6 legendary weapons they killed him for, armed with a secret 7th enchanted blade that his father finished right before he died, which channels the unfathomable killing power of their 3 pet goldfish. And that's way less silly than it sounds, kind of badass even. It's actually an inspired design choice if you really think about it. All three fish share the same distinctive silhouette, so they're instantly recognizable from any angle, but they also have different distinct coloring and patterns that allow you to instantly identify which of his three powers is active at any given time, making the fast-paced action scenes that much easier to read at a glance, even when the power system gets kinda complex. And because those patterns read clearly both in color and black and white with a halftone, they work just as well on a color spread, or hypothetically, in the inevitable anime, as they do on a regular page. Now, Chihiro isn't just driven by revenge. The magic swords are also just so obviously and insanely dangerous that they really can't be left out in the wild. His father wanted them sealed away, and he is carrying out his will, trying to protect his legacy by ensuring that his life's work never harms any innocents. But he also obviously wants to make those wizard bastards pay as painfully as possible, and will stop at nothing to do it with his own hands. He's a complicated hero, fixated but not single-minded, ice-cold on the outside, yet warm-hearted at his core. A young man who wants to believe in other people, even though the world has taught him that he shouldn't. Chihiro's isn't the only compellingly transformative character arc we've seen so far either. The supporting cast all has their own baggage and depth, every bit as interesting as their magic powers. And let me tell you, those magic powers are real fucking interesting. If you, like me, feel that teleporters are generally underutilized in superhero stories, just for example, you are gonna want to give this a read. Hokuzono Sensei has a real knack for introducing characters organically in the middle of fight scenes too, making each first impression uniquely memorable, and also hype as A lot of shonen start strong, then struggle to surpass the heights of their intro chapters as the writer gets into parts that they haven't planned out as well, while many others take a few chapters to really get going as the writers figure out what the story's gonna be. But Kagurabachi hooks you from the word go with some of the coolest, rawest shit you've ever seen, then manages to successfully escalate its action and stakes with basically every successive chapter. Personally, I still like Dandadan just a little bit more. I've always had a preference for comedies, and its characters really speak to me on a personal level. But from an objective shonen expert viewpoint, I'm gonna have to agree with the shonen experts who run the biggest shonen magazine in the world in their assessment that this is the one that everyone's gonna be talking about in a few years' time. It just strikes that perfect balance between good shonen fundamentals and true innovation that's defined every mega hit we're still talking about today. Plus, the fanbase has shown an incredible willingness to embrace outgoing JJK fans with all their boys love ships, which, as we all know, are the most lucrative kind of ship that any shonen can hope to have.
Congratulations, brother.
Realistically, the only thing standing in Kagurabachi's way of dominating the shonen scene for at least the next 5 years are a historically terrible anime adaptation, which I just don't think the powers that be at Shueisha will let happen, or Hokuzono Sensei burning out as the pressure mounts and the never-ending brutality of the weekly manga grind really sets in. But even if one of those worst-case scenarios comes to pass, it won't be the end of the world for Jump itself, because, as I hope I've demonstrated throughout this video, they're not really in a place where they need to rely on just a few big hits anymore. Hence why both JJK and Hero Aca were allowed to end on their own terms this close together. Jump has 4 top-tier contenders in their Battle Shonen lineup alone right now, plus what could well be the biggest romance anime of the decade, and a cute-as-a-button slice-of-life thing that, in the right hands, say KyoAni or PA Works, maybe Cloverworks, could easily sell millions of figurines. And between all of their platforms, they're constantly cultivating new and interesting stories, many of which do get canceled pretty fast. Yeah, you know, I'm due for another video about those, come to think of it. But the ones that last, more often than not, are something really special. If I made this video in a few months instead of right now, there's a very good chance I'd have spent just as long gushing about Ken Wakui's new superpowered Yakuza brawler thing, Astro Royale, as I did Sakamoto Days, which has great characters, as you'd probably expect from the creator of Tokyo Revengers, plus a really interesting power system and some seriously cool fight scenes. But it's also only 17 chapters in at this point, and while it does seem to be doing well enough to not get canceled, you really never know with Jump, and I don't want to curse it. And of course, Jump Plus also has some very promising new series picking up steam as we speak. Wild Strawberry, for example, is this gorgeous and crazy horror action series about a Tokyo overrun by man-eating parasitic plant monsters that can hide themselves in human flesh, which has kind of settled into a disappointingly conventional battle shonen rhythm after an explosive set of opening chapters, but the monster designs are still neat as heck. The power system kind of reminds me of Tokyo Ghoul, and in the hands of a director who really understands horror, I think the anime could still be huge. Speaking of body snatchers, those are also a core theme of Astro Baby, this wildly off-the-wall horror comedy about a soldier who goes AWOL in the cannibalistic alien parasite quarantine zone that's also his hometown after the MILF who he's been crushing on since he was a kid gets infected by one of them parasites mid-childbirth, and he has to team up with her baby who's been possessed by a good body-snatching cannibalistic alien parasite to take down all the other advanced strains of these parasites that are threatening the human race and also apparently the dynamics of alien parasite society. A team-up that sometimes involves that baby piloting his body like a flesh mech. There is no other manga quite like Astro Baby, and I don't know if it's going to be a mainstream hit, but it definitely has the makings of a cult classic. Marriage Toxin, on the other hand, does have the potential to be proper huge, mixing romance, action, and some seriously good comedy into the story of a master assassin who teams up with a professional catfish scammer to find himself a wife and carry on the family's people poisoning business before his grandma decides to force his happily coupled up lesbian sister to bear their heir instead. The core character chemistry is perfect, the action scenes are super intense, and the comedy is frequently laugh-out-loud funny, so if Marriage Toxin does get at least a halfway decent anime, I would be shocked if it doesn't pop off. Also, while it is seinen, not shonen, I think that everyone should be keeping their eye on Chojin X, the newish, sort of superhero-y horror action manga thing from the creator of Tokyo Ghoul, which, like its predecessor, rides a very interesting line between battle manga and a lot of other genres, and features some very bold and out there page layouts that make it an absolute joy to read. Also, while I'm busy shouting out seinen manga that don't really have a place in this video, but they're really good nonetheless and also a great use of your Jump app subscription, Dog's Red, the batshit insane figure skater playing hockey manga from the creator of Golden Kamui, is a batshit insane manga about a figure skater playing hockey from the creator of Golden Kamui. So f***ing read that already, please. Or if you're already an avid manga reader of Jump or other publishers, or hey, why not, light novels, let me know down below what upcoming anime you think are gonna be huge. Bonus points if you can explain why. I'm Geoff Thew, professional shonen battle spectator, and I see. He's channeling the ether that way, is he? That's an incredibly advanced technique. What, you don't understand? Oh boy, let me get my chart.